Welcome everyone. Now we have come to the last session for the day one of Youth IGF India, and we have a very exciting session planned right now because we've been talking about various organizations, and we've had sessions where we spoke about how young people can contribute to internet governance, but we haven't really spoken about what are the opportunities, and before opportunities, what are the challenges that we may face if we want to contribute to internet governance, right? So in this session particularly, we have three brilliant speakers, young speakers, who have been contributing extremely actively to the internet governance space. And when I say contribution, not just in capacity building and advocacy, they do substantial contributions and work with the policymakers. So I am very, very thrilled and happy to welcome our panelists today. Before that, a quick introduction. So I am, as you know now, I am Ihita G. I am steering committee member of Youth IGF India. I'm also associated with the United Nations International Telecommunications Union, ITU, as a board member at the Generation Connect Visionaries Board. So I'm very thrilled to be here and to be able to have a discussion with our three expert panelists. We have Ms. Elisabeth, who is the team lead Society and International Affairs at German Informatics Center. We have Ms. Manju, who has been an ICANN Fellow, and Manju can elaborate on this further. And she's a researcher at IIEPA. We have Ms. Theorose, I hope I'm pronouncing it correct, Theorose, who's the assistant lecturer, faculty of journalism and media studies at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. She's also a member of the Ghana Youth IGF. So before, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start off with, like I mentioned, the session is going to talk about the role of youth, the challenges youth may face if they want to engage in internet governance, what are the opportunities, and all of this we'll try to navigate from each of our panelists' personal experience, okay? So how about we start with Elisabeth. Elisabeth, I hope, how are you, first of all?
Thank you, Ihita. I'm very good. I'm very happy to be joining you today. Thank you for inviting me to this.
Nice, I'm really glad you were able to make it. Thank you. So my first question is around, why should youth engage in internet governance decisions and dialogues? What do you think that young people bring to the table? And if you could share your experience working with young people, from the global IGF that's going to start from the 6th of December, and also EuroDIG, which is the European Dialogue on Internet Governance.
Of course, of course. So first of all, I think we should because we can. As you probably have discussed today, the internet governance sphere is, although it has its faults and challenges, to openness and inclusivity, is much more open than many other policy processes that we have in the world. So it was deliberately set up, the Internet Governance Forum specifically, and then also other processes like ICANN, to be open to an extent where normal people who are not parts of governments or big corporations can join. And then it took some years, actually quite many years, I find, to also come to the realization that youth does not only need to be taught and does not only need capacity building, but they also are an important voice on those discussions for several reasons. So of course, the one that is cited the most often is that youth are the future. So everything that we talk about today in terms of the internet and digitization will have a direct effect on ourselves and the people who are younger than us. So we need to be included in this kind of thought process, because the internet is still kind of new, and a lot of the older political frameworks don't really allow for that more innovative thinking that young people can bring. So this is cited often, and I also agree. But then we also have an inherent right of political participation that is put down not only for people in their teens and early 20s or in their 20s, but also younger than that. Children also have a right to be heard on this. And then we have to think about really, because what happens with all kinds of groups who are kind of marginalized, so it's not only young people, but also women and people of marginalized, racialized communities, is that they get put to the sidelines. They may be invited to conferences or to processes, but then they are kind of put there as tokens or as decoration. people are like, yes, we invited a young person, they are on the panel, now all is good. And what I have been trying to do, and many others as well, over the past years, is to kind of foster processes where young people who have an interest in digitization, and this can go into different directions, for example, human rights. So I myself came to internet governance from a human rights way, then others from the technical society, but we all need to kind of develop a common understanding of what we're talking about. So this needs some capacity building, as you do here, for example, in Youth IGF India. And then we need to strategically find out where we can do advocacy, where we can be present. And this would then lead us to set up processes like, for example, in 2019, when the Internet Governance Forum, the international one, was coming to Berlin, me and my team, we developed the Youth IGF Summit, because we thought, okay, we need an integration of young people at the base level, and then we need to bring them in to the table. And for this, we also conducted several webinars and a day where the young people who came could work on their messages. So this is actually something that I've been doing a lot in the past years in my project, is not only coming together and talking about things, but also formulating policy recommendations, policy messages, to then speak in a unified voice, more or less. And this is in all of the things that I've been doing at the European dialogue, but also in more international projects. This is the focus, I would say.
Thanks, Elisabeth. Thanks a lot for the inputs, and regarding the IGF also. What I would like to do now, since you have given a context on youth, the importance of youth in engaging in internet governance and what they bring to the table, I would like to ask Theorose, from your experience, working closely with the Ghana Youth IGF, what do you think are the hiccups that the young people that you face when you're mobilizing the young people towards their engagement and contributions in the internet governance space?
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Theorose from Ghana. I think it's almost 11 a.m. here, so nice to meet you all. Right. So with some of the challenges that we face, of course, I think Elisabeth had mentioned a point that is very critical to me: the fact that some of the youth feels that you need to be technical to be part of the IG system. Now, I always use myself as a clear example. I'm a trained journalist all my entire life. I'm trained to be a communicator. That's my job. I'm trained to be a public relations officer. I have no technical background, but I've been working in the IG ecosystem for a while, both on organizing, panel searching, and all that. And I think that it's one of the key things that we need to encourage more youth, that irrespective of what background you have and where you are coming from, you still play a critical role. For example, as a media person and in academia, I could still bring a lot to the table in terms of internet governance. I could develop policy papers. I could actually every industry use the internet. Let me put it like that. As long as you use the internet, you have to be involved in how the internet works. You have to take part in decision making. You have to take part in everything that you do. So in Ghana, we kind of have that challenge. But the good thing again is that we make sure that the youth steering committee, it's full of representatives from different angles. So we have people from the technical part, we have people from the government, as working in the government, we have people working as civil servant, we have people working in academia, and so we bring in all the blends, and we try as much as possible to give every working group the opportunity to provide or bring up ideas for their industry. So let me just give a clear example. Last year, that's 2020, we were when we're organizing our youth IGF sorry, when we're organizing our youth IGF, we came up with an idea of actually having working groups. So we had communication team, we have technical team, we have the civil organization team, and then each of the the youth steering members are the lead on that project. So I happen to be the lead on the communication team. And what I do is that I encourage youth to join the team, youth that have communication background, that are not technical. I encourage them to join the working group, and my colleagues at the technical side are also doing the same. Those at the government side are all doing the same. Now, the reason why we thought to do it that way is to actually make people feel like we know how it feels like. I don't know if you guys get the point. So it's like telling somebody that I don't have a technical background, but I'm contributing. I have to, with me not having a technical background, it'll be easier for them to actually know how it feels like, because I'm just one of them. There's no different at all. I'm just one of them, rather than just putting it in the box and telling everybody that you can be there. We rather prefer to give them leads or working leaders that are in the same situation like them, and make it look possible, because the idea is that everybody needs motivation. And it's good that this year the main IGF is having the Youth Summit session. It's not just about bringing youth on board. That's my key thing, right? We as much as we want all the youth on board, we want youth from diverse areas. So we don't want the Youth Summit to be filled with technical people or just civil society. It doesn't achieve that. We have the numbers, but we still don't have diversity, right? So everybody, irrespective of where you work, even if you are into climate change, whatever at all, you can still contribute to your environment. So that's what we did. And I think that it's one of the key things, the ability to create a safer space, right? That it's not just about telling them that you can do it and it's possible, but is giving them mentorship and support. That's one of the key things that we also lack in the youth system. So you see a lot of people advocating for youth involvement, and when the youth come on board after, let's say, after this IGF session, do you have any plan to engage the youth afterwards? Do you have any plan to provide mentorship to encourage them? Because when I was going into the IG ecosystem, trust me, it was very tough. I don't know my left and right. I was so enthused and excited about every program, and I wanted to be everywhere. But with time, I realized that I can't be everywhere. I mean, technical sounds nice, but I can't be in technical, right? Because I don't have the right expertise. I can't be in government, even though it sounds interesting, but I could find myself in academia within IG and work within that space. And I got that from mentorship and fellowships and projects, and that I think, it's all that. So I think that I've said a lot, and I just basically would want to emphasize on providing a space, a free space for the youth, and being able to bring them all on board and making them feel like they can do it. Now, again, just before I wrap up this one, we would also have to look at the issue of we basically don't look at people with disability and even know how they could participate. People with physical challenges, how do we bring them on board? Because they are youth as well, right? I mean, who is the youth? The UN Charter defined the youth as somebody between the age of 18 to 34. So irrespective, if you fall within that gap and you are physically disabled, how do you bring people on board? Because first of all, they already have issues with their disability. They feel they cannot be part because of the challenges they have. So how do we bring such people on board? I think this is what we all have to think about once we move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Theorose. Those points were wonderful, because you mentioned about the last point, especially about inclusion and how do you make the forum and the contributions inclusive. And the other one that you mentioned regarding people believing that technical skills are required. Strong technical understanding is predominantly what is required if you want to contribute to internet governance, and that can be considered a huge hiccup, and thus they are very hesitant to contribute. So taking over on this point, and one more point that I really loved, and I think would be a great motivation for the IGF OC also, the organizing committee, would be designing very strong post-engagement plans with our fellows and our attendees. So that is something we'll definitely work on further. Now, since you mentioned the hiccup around technical skill sets, I would like to talk to Manju next and ask her, since the youth generally feel there are certain skill sets required in order for them to contribute to internet governance, and that brings in a lot of hesitancy. So since you've been very actively, in fact, contributing towards ICANN in the PDP and a couple of other committees within ICANN and other organizations as well, what do you suggest to our audience, youth, non-youth, on how we can engage in such platforms and the opportunities at ICANN as well?
Thank you, Ihita. So yes, so mostly I work like my area of interest in this IG ecosystem is ICANN, because now I'm actually a member of the non-commercial stakeholder group in ICANN. It's a part of GNSO, which is Generic Name Supporting Organization. And I'm also actually representing NCSG in the GNSO Council. So that's how I work now. And so I'm not doing a lot of other things in the IG ecosystem now, because ICANN requires a lot of work. And I think I want to respond to, I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, Theorose. So you were talking about how it's difficult, so you have to decide your stakeholder, and you can't be a technical community because you're not from a technical background. I'm not from a technical background either. I study anthropology, but ICANN and the whole IG system is actually a technical community. So don't be afraid. You can definitely be part of the technical community, even if you're not from a technical background, because you know what? They need those who are not from a technical background there too, because otherwise they don't know anything about like anything other than technical stuff. So it's always nice to, you know, explore and just try to join all kinds of platforms you can, and just find out what topics interest you the most. That was what I was doing, and then I found like ICANN seems nice. It's okay. So I started to work more towards ICANN, and I think this is important because it's only when you find the topics you're interested in that you're willing to, you know, learn more and to speak up and to study. And to be honest, if you want to have a quality discussions, you want to, you know, have kind of really effective conversations, you really have to have the knowledge. And if you want to have knowledge, you really have to study. And if you don't have the interest, it's really like you don't feel motivated to study at all, right? So we are all, I think we were all students. We know how it feels to study things you don't want to study. So best just find something you're interested in, and then, you know, go for it and try to speak up. But I definitely understand that, like, especially in ICANN, sorry, I'm only talking about ICANN because that's mostly what I know. So especially in ICANN, people, I hope we don't have like seniors here. People are very old. Most people are very old. And so it's very hard because you feel like, oh, I'm young, I don't know anything. They've been there since I can even haven't started. But and you feel like, oh, all I have is questions, but I don't want to ask stupid questions. And there's always this saying that there's no stupid questions. I mean, it's a nice saying, but that's not true. There are stupid questions. But the point is, it's okay to be stupid. It's okay to ask stupid questions because that's how you learn. I mean, everybody was stupid. Nobody was born, you know, with all this knowledge in their head when they were a baby, right? You have to remember that everybody has been there, has been in our places where they didn't know anything. So you just, it's a very good quality that you know you're ignorant about a thing. So you know, you can learn about it and you can become knowledgeable about it. And then you can really, you know, contribute about the topic. But I mean, these are all good pet talk, I guess. Like, you know it, but it's hard to do it yourself, especially when the discussion becomes too technical or you think becomes too professional. So I guess I'll share my few tips when I really like join the work and start doing like those professional discussions. First is, like I said, you have to study. You really have to read a lot. It requires a lot of readings to know a topic, and know the inside out, and then you can, you know, feel confident to speak about it. And next is so now everything is actually virtual, and this is what I do still a lot now when I'm joining work, is that sometimes you feel like, oh, the host is talking and then others are raising their hands. You don't know when is the best time to raise your hand or like to, you know, speak up. You can just type in the chat. I mean, we're all very good at typing, I guess, because we're the digital natives. So type in the chat and you'll find out that actually people in this IG ecosystem, they're very good at having discussions and the meeting while like paying full attention to the chat. So your questions are always going to be answered by other people. And if not, maybe the host will even pick up the questions and they'll answer it during the session. They will maybe probably even ask you to elaborate on your questions. And then you're like invited to speak. And once you accept the invitation to speak up, it's like you gain a little bit more courage every time. And then at the end, you feel like you're confident enough to raise your hand. And last but not least, I think this is very important. Especially this is very, I don't know if it's ICANN related or technical community related, but I don't think so, because it's like every time people are asking for volunteers, they put up a lot of requirements, right? You have to be this, be that, you have to have experiences of this and that. Just disregard that. Care less about it, because nobody matches all the descriptions. And they're not really asking for people who are matching all those descriptions. They probably just copy paste from somewhere else. They didn't even mean to want the people like they described. So you just sign you up for it. Just sign yourself up, and then you'll find maybe you are totally capable of that job, even if you thought you weren't. So yeah, that's probably my hopefully more useful tips when you're trying to join any kind of IG work. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Manju. I would request the panelists to like share any opportunities that you're aware of, any upcoming events, and any mentorship related or fellowship related opportunities, so they can register for them and engage further after IGF as well. So my next question is actually to Elisabeth. This is regarding, so, you're working with IGF, and then, it's just not working with young people, but young people along with policymakers. So what, according to you, are the topics of relevance to the young people for the coming year? And could you, of course, share, like I mentioned, the platforms of fellowships where these youth can get more information on what the topics of relevance are, and if they have anything that affects them or the society, they can share there.
Definitely. So I will start with the first question, and just to give you a bit of a background, this is actually something that we started more so this year by having a program that we called Youth Igf Policymakers, to really get young people from all world regions on eye level with parliamentarians mostly, because that was also something that the IGF community kind of woke up to just 2 years ago or 3 years ago, where they were like, okay, cool, maybe we should invite actual regulators into our sphere, because they have, when it comes to it, at least in democracies that are set up that way, the strongest influence on what will be then adopted law, which is why there are no formal decisions taken at the IGF. It is important that those people are involved. And so from this thought, we kind of were like, okay, but then they also need to talk to young people, because those highly political people are always kind of shut off from us normal people, I would say. So we set up a program where we first had capacity building workshops, and then 4 roundtables. And we kind of, I mean, that's the thing, if you get a diverse group of people from different ages and also different regions, different professional backgrounds, there will always be such a wide range of topics. It's really hard to narrow down to say, okay, this is the topic that youth are super interested in, because they're interested in so many things and also so knowledgeable in so many things. We kind of modeled it after what the Internet Governance Forum this year has as their key themes, and talked about content and media literacy, and platform regulation is part of that. So I think this is something that is very interesting to a lot of people, because not to make an overstatement, but I think most of us use some form of social media platform. So this is something that really concerns young people specifically. We also talked about protection and security online, and also the protection of vulnerable groups, because what I find is, especially young people are so tuned in to how exclusionary sometimes or dangerous the internet can be, much more than other people, and they really want to work on solutions to make this a better place for everyone. So this is something that I found we had a very good discussion in. Then we also talked about access and accessibility, so ranging from how do people get access to the internet, and once we are all there, how can this be made accessible to people with different needs, like Theorose said, people with disabilities, for example, or different forms of literacy. And also there were so many good ideas. I think it is really hard to narrow it down. Something that also comes or has been coming up in the past years, specifically where I find youth are such an important speaker on the topic, is the topic of sustainability and environment. We can see this also on a global level on sustainability activism. It's mostly young people driving this, and now this also seeps into the internet governance world. But all this is to say, if something interests you, also, like Manju said, go for it. You are an expert in your own right. You don't need the permission of anyone to just go to these sessions. For example, the Internet Governance Forum is coming up, and you can all register and go to any session, raise your hand, raise your voice, and there's no one who can hold you back from that. So I think in terms of openness, this is something that we all should do to really show up to these bigger events, although it might be a bit, I don't know, awkward in the beginning if you don't know anyone, but just do it. And then there's a lot of wonderful capacity building opportunities. For example, ISOC always does these youth ambassadorships, capacity building programs. ISOC and I can also have those self-learning courses. So if it's not the time of those ambassadorships, you can do some e-learning and prepare yourself. Then there are the schools on internet governance. They're regional, but some of them are also international. So for example, the European School on Internet Governance always happens in summers. It's a summer school, and they accept people from all world regions to the program. And also I think the South School on Internet Governance, they stream their the whole program. At least it was like that some years ago. So it's really, the barriers are rather low for these participation things. Then you, Ihita, and many others probably have heard about the ITU project, ITU Connect. So there's so much going on. It's sometimes a bit hard to navigate. So the best is to ask around, to follow these things on social media, if you're active on Twitter, Instagram, for example, and kind of keep your eyes open, because there's always something different popping up where you can get engaged, and also more specifically on topics maybe that you yourself are interested in.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Elisabeth. That was quite detailed. And we, like you mentioned, the European school, we also have the Asia Pacific School of Internet Governance. There's this logo that pops up when I switch off my camera. So that is the Asia Pacific School of Internet Governance. And they have a wonderful platform for you too. They have fellowships, so you can be a fellow there and then learn about the Asia Pacific related issues. Elisabeth also mentioned, since the question was around topics of relevance, that's why we're encouraging for you to talk about the issues and challenges that you want policymakers to discuss. And we have organizations like this. Like she also mentioned, the ITU Generation Connect. There is a youth summit that is planned, I think, sometime in June, where we are also looking for, we're looking just not capacity building. We're going to talk with high-level experts and try to see if any policies can come around it. And what ITU Generation Connect board and the Asia Pacific Youth Group, for example, they try to provide ICT-based strategic guidance on digital youth inclusion. So there are a lot of events coming up, and we would strongly encourage all of you to get in touch. I would be more than happy. I think what we'll try to do is, Alan, Shraddhanjali will send out an email with all the opportunities that are lined up for the coming year as much as possible, try to make it as comprehensive as possible so they learn as much as they can. And yeah, so I think I'll take another question. I would like to ask Manju regarding this. So, since we're talking about the challenges and topics of relevance, etc. So in the Asia Pacific region, what do you think are the challenges with youth engagement? And if you're aware of any other opportunities to get mentored further?
Thanks. I think for sorry, it's all about ICANN again. So in terms of ICANN, I think one of the most challenging parts first is definitely the time zone, because if you're working in an international environment which mostly occupied by Americans and many of Europeans, then the time zone is always going to be either the American time or the EU time. So it's never so friendly for us. For example, all of my meetings are at 10 or 11 at night. Sometimes you have to do a 11 p.m. meeting, and then the next day it's a 5 a.m. meeting. So it's definitely very difficult. And but this is what we can do, to change, because once we have more people in this community and we have more people in the meeting than the Americans or other people from other regions, then we can set the time that is more preferable for us. But of course, we have to remember that in the international settings, you have to always think of others. So it's better we change the time zone, change the time every time we have a meeting. But now it's not the case, because it's so less American Asian people, so we just fix it on the time of the American time. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And the other one, maybe that's not so much for the Indians, because you're all massive good English speakers, but for others, other people from the Asian Pacific area, a lot of us are not English native speakers, so language is definitely a barrier, because when it comes to international discussions, everything is carried on in English. That's another major challenge, because you have to learn about new things, and then it's not even in your native English. And I always feel that I sound much smarter when I'm speaking my native language. So that's definitely a barrier. And but I think it's not that you can only participate in international forums, right? There's always local forums. So just start there and discuss things in your native tongues, and you can get knowledge that way too. But if you want to go international, you have definitely to work on your language skills. And other opportunities I will recommend is definitely ICANN Fellowship and ICANN Next Gen. And I think it's very good. It's very good that we're having this discussion now, because next year, one of the meetings, and it's actually the biggest ICANN meeting, the annual general meeting, is going to be in Malaysia. So you guys can all go. And there's this Next Gen program that's only for students. So if you're studying Asia Pacific area, you should definitely apply for it, because it's only when the ICANN meetings are in your region that you can apply for Next Gen. So that's a fantastic opportunity. And I think the fellowship for next year's first ICANN meeting has already passed. And the second meeting, if you haven't been a fellow, you cannot really apply So you can definitely try the third meeting, which I'm gonna post like the timeline and everything in the chat afterwards. And also, speaking of internet governance schools, there's a program called APIGA. It's hosted by ICANN and KISA, but mainly ICANN and APNEC and ISOC. So it's a great program. You should definitely check out that too. It's mostly every summer, but this year it was winter because, you know, the whole online virtual thing, it kind of had to change the timeline. But watch out for it. If they're opening for applications, it's gonna be in April, May, sometimes around that. And last but not least, I'm actually in a group called Youth IG. We are a group of people who are passionate about internet governance, and we want to, you know, just link as many youth as possible in the AP area to, you know, find the to form this coalition, form this line where we can talk to each other and learn from each other. We actually have mentorship programs too. It's stopped for this year, but next year we're trying to revive it. So last year we actually have 2 mentors and 6 mentees, where we have like a very small close group. They had weekly meetings and they really learned a lot from the mentorship program. I'm gonna post the website there too, and please feel free to join us. We have a WhatsApp group. You can just sign up the Google form and we'll add it. We'll add you into the WhatsApp group. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Manju. And yes, she's mentioned a lot of opportunities like the ICANN Action Program, ICANN Fellowship, and we also have a community coalition, like she mentioned, which is the Youth for IG. Once, if you are all interested, I can connect you to Manju and also Millie, who is a dear friend, and then we can add you to the WhatsApp group. So all the young people with the same motivation are, you know, in the same group. And I would like to end the panel discussion of the question to Theorose on like a very good note. If you could describe an anecdote where the contribution from the youth has brought about a significant change in the IG ecosystem in Ghana.
Right. So change. Okay. So well, I think there has been change in terms of participation and people who are interested in events. Now we can trace this back all the way to 5 years back. I think 2017. We keep seeing the number increasing yearly. So the first time we had Youth IGF in Ghana, I think we were 2020, and it was virtual anyway. We had almost to 80 participants. We have a lot of youth forming part of our School of Internet Governance, and so I think that in terms of the youth community in Ghana, we keep increasing day in, day out. Our WhatsApp platforms and Telegram and all social media platforms have seen a new rise, which is good actually, because then it means most of the youth are understanding what IG itself is, or what the internet ecosystem is, and they are contributing, right? So that's my second point, that we've had over the years more people volunteering to take in positions, volunteering to participate. Very much we are getting ourselves recognized. I mean, of course we would do better, or we should do better, but we are getting ourselves recognized as well. And in terms of most of the events that my other speakers have mentioned, like even the main IGF and ICANN and the rest, we've also seen most of the youth from Ghana being part and hosting such events. I mean, and so I think it's a major growth for us in Ghana, because we just don't want to fight locally as well. We also want to take our discussions and our contribution out there to the international platforms, and we are trying to build partnership as well. So it's one of the growth that we see, and the crazy part is that such growth are not really seen as growth by others, but I personally think that it's a good one. Now, even for myself, where I started, I joined the IG ecosystem in 2017, and with the level of exposure that I have, and then the event that I've attended, and all my contributions that I've sent in, either in panel discussion or through paper writing, I've experienced a big growth, and I think that other youth as well are doing that. You can see their works and see their contributions in the other platforms. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Theorose. Thank you very much, everyone. The reason I would like to rush a bit is because it's 5 p.m. In India, and we promised our participants that we'll be wrapping up by 5 p.m. But if there are any questions, we still have 2 minutes to go. So if anyone has any questions, I think we can take 2 questions regarding anything, whatever was discussed right now. And I'm sure our panelists can even answer questions regarding the general IG ecosystem and the general challenges that were discussed during the day. Are there any questions? And please do make sure that you take a note of all the links that are shared, because you'll get to learn a lot. And most of these events will be happening now, let us say actually, one of them will start happening from day after tomorrow. But apart from that, there'll be a lot of events happening from next month onwards. So I think you can definitely take a note of that. If there are no questions, then I think, how about we wrap up the session? Are there any comments? Okay, perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. Yes, so I just want to thank the other speakers for these opportunities, and also encourage others to take part in that. I think one thing that Manju said that was very great to me is the fact that when we are even applying for volunteering positions, you see a lot of requirements and you just feel like you don't belong anywhere because there are a lot. And so I think it's one of the main things that make people feel like they don't belong in, because it looks a lot, but it works. And I also think that we can share the opportunities that we have in the network. There's unity in strength. I think that's what the youth are advocating for, right? That we work together as youth. So it's great that we are on this panel session. Wherever we find ourselves next time, at least we can leverage on the network that we build out there and do a lot together. Yeah, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Theorose, for the concluding remarks. So you'd like to wrap up the session. So I'd just like to thank Elisabeth, Manju, and Theorose for joining today. This was an incredibly insightful session for all the young people, because the insights were such that, they can learn so much more with those insights. So thanks a lot, and have a great day. We would like to conclude day 1 right now. And yeah, so what I would like to do is take you all through what we did today, right? So we started off the day with understanding internet governance. We had keynote from Ms. Anya, and after which we understood what internet governance is through a session called Internet Governance 101. We understood the essence, the stakeholders, and where youth come in there. Then after that, we had a session on how does the internet work. We understood routing, we understood the various protocols. Then we also understood how the DNS works and how the DNS, the domain name is resolved into the IP address, and how does the entire process work around where you send a query and then you get a response for your query. Then we also, I think, briefly touched about DNSSEC, and that was about it. And then we had a session by Shraddhanjali, where she explained, took you through what happened in the past 1 year, since IGF 2020 to 2021. What are the themes of the various issues that took place? And after that, we had a panel discussion where we understood that was around strengthening digital literacy, inclusion, and diversity. So we understood the various challenges. What is being done? What are the initiatives by 3 of the major organizations who were also, we had representatives from each of these organizations in the panel today. After that, we had a session on censorship and internet shutdowns, which are highly debated topics, and we've been highly debated since a while now. So through this session, we wanted to understand what you think about these topics, and also to explain the fact that even within youth, you can have multiple experiences, multiple perspectives, and that's the whole point of having a multi-stakeholder kind of youth IGF platform for such discussions. Now we had a very insightful session where we understood how youth can, contribute to internet governance, and what are the opportunities, and if there are any challenges. We understood what the challenges are, respect to Asia Pacific and just globally, and also how important it is when we talk about designing curriculum, or when we're talking about designing any sort of an agenda for capacity building. It's important that we all step in and talk about what needs to be spoken, what topic and what issue needs to be spoken at such conferences and such platforms. So that is what we have done today. Tomorrow we will be having